Welcome everyone to Pleasant Grove City Council's meeting this evening. Special welcome to Commissioners Ellertson, Commissioner Lee, Commissioner-elect Ivey, Richard Nilsson, Mayor Gigi, David Zapala, Jenny Reese, and then coming is Rob Crawley and Mike Geddes, and Dave Bunker, City Manager for Cedar Hills. So welcome everyone. All members of the City Council in Pleasant Grove except for Sid Lamone are here, and we think Sid's may or may not make it this evening. We're going to begin with a Pledge of Allegiance led by a Scout, Bridger Wilkins, and then we're going to ask Eric Jensen to offer an invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening. We're grateful to be gathered together as citizens in this wonderful country. As we discuss the needs tonight, to do so in a civil and appropriate manner. We're again grateful for this week, what it brings to us, and the Thanksgivings that we have for our families and for this truly great nation. We ask that those who are traveling may be safe as they travel to their families to partake in this great, and we're grateful for all that we have as citizens, and we say these things humbly in everybody's son, Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, our first, almost here. Okay, great. Our first order of business is to consider for adoption a resolution 2016-048 authorizing the mayor and municipal city council sitting as the board of canvassers to accept the election returns and declaring and certifying the results of the general election held on November 8th, 2016. Kathy Kresser is going to present.
You probably need a microphone.
So the results of the canvass came in today from the county for the bond election. There were, thank you. I know I'm always getting after you. Number of precincts, 16. Precincts reporting, 16. Total votes, 12,538. For the bond, 7,850. Against, 4,685. That's it.
Okay, any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion, Mayor, Council, that we adopt Resolution 2016-048, authorizing the mayor and the municipal council sitting as the board of canvassers to accept the election returns, declaring and certifying the results of the general election held on November 8, 2016, and declaring that the bond election was approved by the majority of residents.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ben and a second by Eric. By voice, Diana.
Woohoo!
That's a yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
It is not here. Ben?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, our next item of business.
Mayor,
Yes,
I'm sorry, may I just
Commissioner?
have a moment?
please.
In regard to elections.
Go ahead and grab the microphone right there.
Is it black?
Is that a microphone?
Yes, it is.
Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Just a little bit of information relative to elections. We canvassed the city or the county election a little earlier today. And just for information, I won't go through all of the detail. You know the results, but we had a little over 74% voting countywide. Not quite as good as the 79 or so that we had in 12, but a very good year.
That is a lot of interest. Okay. Our next item of business is a joint meeting with City of Cedar Hills, as well as we've invited the county commissioners, Commissioner-elect, and also Sid Lamone is present. She has arrived. And also the Public Works Director, Richard Nilsson. And what we want to talk about tonight is we're very close to this agreement on First Easton Canyon Road. I think Commish, how long have we been discussing this? Longer previously when I
Seems
was
like
here?
yesterday.
So it's been about 12 years, I think, that we've been discussing Canyon Road, and there's been so much discussion back and forth, and even in the last couple of weeks, I think there's been more information that we have had to verify, and just kind of what we thought we'd do is get everybody in the same room, let everybody speak and ask each other questions, and kind of go from there. And then there's no questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott to give us the background.
I think a lot of people are familiar with the background, and I'm going to, just a couple things. These are proximity mics here, so as you can tell, if it's close enough to me, because my voice can carry a little bit, you can hear. If you're a little bit more soft-spoken, you might need a little bit closer to you. If you drop this or something, you'll get a high squeak, and they're sensitive sometimes, so just be aware. I'm going to recap maybe the last 2 or 3 years. And so like Mayor Daniels said, I think there's been a lot of things that have been happening with this. And as I recap, and if I am misrepresenting or I have it wrong, please feel free to jump in and say, no, this is what happened, and just correct me, because this is really my understanding of kind of why we're here today. At one point, Canyon Road First East was a state road. And as North County Boulevard was being done, there was an agreement struck between the county and North County and UDOT for North County Boulevard to become a state road, and for Canyon, I'll just call it Canyon Road, to become a county road. Somewhat after that was taking place, we were approached by the county commissioners, I say we, I think Pleasant Grove and Cedar Hills, about the cities taking that road, taking ownership of the road. We had certain discussions and got down a certain road with that to a point where we applied. Pleasant Grove City, I think, was the applicant, and Cedar Hills, I don't know if you're a co-applicant or exactly how we worded that, with MAG to get additional funding to help with the improvements of that road. The county had represented that their intention was to keep it at a county standard road. Our intention was we'd like to see it become more of a city standard road, but also take care of storm drain issues, safety issues as far as sight distances, intersections that maybe had some concerns. We received a grant from MAG for I think 4.3 million, 4.5, with using the county, let me take a step back. The UDOT gave the county, to my understanding, $3.3 million to be used for taking care of the road, because UDOT knew that when they gave the road to the county, it was not in very good shape. And then the county had some money left over from the North County project, about 1.5 million that was going to be earmarked for this project. So the county had 4.8 million to do what they were going to do with County Road. We used that as a match with MAG in order to obtain the additional grant funds. In the meantime, after the grant funds were awarded, I know we as a council, Cedar Hills as well, took a step back and said, you know what, we don't. The intent was we would take ownership of the road right away. We took a step back and said, you know what, I don't think we want ownership of this road. Once that decision was made, we approached the county and said, we have the grant money available, because the county said, that's fine, we're just going to proceed with how we would maintain this to a county standard. And then we asked, will you take the grant money that's been awarded and do this project? Take your 4.8 million and add the 4.5 to make a $9.3 million project with all the improvements. The response back at the time was, we will do this, but we want you to take ownership of the road eventually. I think initially the county said, we want you to take ownership in 20 years. We had meetings with the county commission and both mayors and both managers a couple times, talking about the parameters. At the time, we were given direction as staff to sit down with the county staff and to work on an agreement. And so we were able to reach an agreement that, in essence, if the county were to take the grant money, the cities would take the road after 30 years. The cities would own the road. In the agreement, it stipulates that the road has to be at a certain condition before we would take it back. It also said that part of our responsibility as cities is we would take care of some of the smaller maintenance, particularly the snow plowing, starting right away. So we wouldn't have ownership of the road, but we would be doing potholes, we would be doing snow plowing, we'd be doing some signage and some striping and things like that. The county, in exchange, would, for that 30 years, take care of any overlays or surface treatments and really more of the big ticket items when it comes to maintenance of the road. As we had that negotiated as staff, we brought it back to our elected officials and we negotiated with the understanding that our elected officials are the decision makers here, and they are eventually going to decide whether we're going to pull the trigger on this or not. And that's where we got. We got it in front of the Pleasant Grove City Council and Cedar Hills City Council. I think at the time, I don't know, a month or so ago, to my understanding, Cedar Hills voted not to go into the agreement. At our particular meeting, we tabled it at that time. Once Cedar Hill decided they weren't going to be party to it, Pleasant Grove and the county sat down and we created an agreement just between Pleasant Grove and the county for the grant money to be used for the Pleasant Grove portion of the road with the improvements, and then we would take ownership after the 30 years. That's been on the table for about 2 or 3 weeks. To where we got to a point last week, we had Councilmember Reese come and to our council meeting and ask that we could all sit down and talk and see kind of where we're at. And so that's what precipitated tonight was we asked the county commissioners to come, Commissioner-elect Ivy, Cedar Hills, Pleasant Grove, and we can all talk and see what's on the table. Part of it, there was a little bit of a sense of urgency if we wanted this project to happen next summer in 2017. The county's got to get going pretty quick on the design. So there was a little bit of a sense of urgency leading up to this. I don't know if we've missed our window. You guys could comment on that.
We're getting close.
Yeah, but
We've probably missed it for a spring start. Well, we have missed it for a spring start.
but I think that's all just part of the discussion as to what's still possible. So that's the recap as to my understanding. If anybody sees that any differently, then you can jump in.
The only piece that I think was missed, and maybe it's understood,
Can you pull that microphone? Thank you, sorry.
I think the only thing that I noticed that was not specifically talked of is that under that second agreement with Pleasant Grove, there was still understood that there would be the improvements to the county standard in
The
the
surface
Cedar
treatments.
Hills portion of it.
Well, we call it the mill and fill. So
That's
essentially
correct.
Cedar Hills would still get the mill and fill,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't get
They
some of
wouldn't.
the improvements that came with the grant
That's
money.
correct.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Richard, was there anything else that you recall that's germane to the
I
discussion?
think Scott's hit it pretty well.
Pretty good
for our
recap.
discussion.
Okay, Mayor, Cedar Hills, anything else that you thought with the recap that we needed to cover?
I think Scott did a good job of explaining all the details. It may be helpful to give some background in terms of why
Sure.
Cedar Hills Council did what they did.
Okay.
And so I think that the entire council was in agreement that they would like the road fixed. The rub was where they wanted the county to take the 9.3, fix the road, then come back and talk to us about ownership. There were some elements in the contract that I know Mrs. Reese didn't like about the ability of the county to cancel the contract within a relatively short period of time. So I think she was concerned about future commissioners, if they're under a budget crunch, coming back and saying, you know, we really can't afford to take care of this road anymore. It's up to the cities to step up and take care of it. So I know that was one element of concern. The council was split on a couple of issues, which is Mr. Geddes and Mr. Zapala, I think, said that at some point in time, they would like the road owned by the city. Others said that they think the county should own the road forever, but take good care of it. So that's where Cedar Hills is in terms of the decision that they made. So I am grateful that we can be here and talk about these things.
So let me make sure I'm understanding, because some of this is the first time I've heard. In the agreement that you read, there was a concern that there's the ability for the future county commission to decide that they're not able to continue to maintain the road?
It could be interpreted that way.
Okay. All right, and then if it's interpreted that way, then maintenance would not be maintained on the road.
Mill and fills would not be done. They wouldn't have any responsibility. At least that's the interpretation that somebody could make.
Okay.
Mayor?
And, sorry,
I was just going to answer that question from the words of the contract, if you
please.
want. So, Section 5, where it talks about the counties, or it talks about the termination of the agreement.
Which agreement are we reading from?
The interlocal that was proposed.
The two,
Both of them.
the both, okay.
So it does talk about terminating, and it's automatically terminates at the end that we've provided, the 30 years. But then it says, if the entities decide to terminate the agreement, then the roadway transfers at the time that we decide we don't want the deal anymore. If the county terminates the agreement, the entities and the county will negotiate in good faith the value that the entities will be paid to uphold the full financial responsibility for the right-of-way and roadway maintenance requirements for the remaining term of the agreement. And in the event that the parties can't agree on the amount, we agree to hire a consultant to determine the amount. So I understand that it could be interpreted that the county, some future county commission can say we don't want this agreement anymore. They have to have that right under the law, but I think the language in the agreement itself says that if they decide to do that, they can't just walk away from their financial responsibility. They're still going to be held responsible for the maintenance and anything else that was left undone for the term of the contract, if that helps.
Maybe not the maintenance, but at least the obligation all the way forward.
I'm sorry, commissioners, if you could share that microphone, that'd be great.
And just to add to that, from our perspective, yes, we understand that part of the contract. I think there were just so many unknowns. One of those being if the county gave that 6-month termination clause and they decide this is the amount that it's going to take to maintain it or to do the big things for the next 30 years. And if we can't agree that's a good number, then we have to go to arbitration, basically, which who knows what that costs. So that's an unknown cost for us. But in addition to that, it was other things such as, if the amount exceeds $9.3 million, the cities have to pay for that extra amount. Our city manager estimates that the maintenance cost would be $15,000 to $20,000 a year for us immediately from the road being fixed. We don't actually get curb and gutter through the whole road, and there's some drainage issues that are still that we're still dealing with even after this fix. That we're responsible for the snow plow removal and law enforcement and drainage and storm drain facilities and the signage and debris removal and striping. And so there was just quite a bit of unknown cost to us that a city of our size is being asked now to absorb. And council, you can interrupt me, but I think for us it was, even if it's just $20,000 a year, which is what we're estimating now would be the maintenance from us starting next year, that puts us in a position where we have to go to our residents and say, okay, we either need to raise taxes or cut services, because we don't have an extra $20,000 right now a year to take care of a county road.
Where's that 20,000? Because I'm not following that 20,000. I think that was Dave's.
Yeah, the 20,000. If we're responsible for the snow plow and pothole maintenance, striping, storm drain, there's a pretty good storm drain facility proposed in the original design. that we had. So if we add up all those costs, that's about $15,000 to $20,000 a year that we estimate we would have to expend to fulfill our portion of the agreement. So,
The storm drain, however, is based upon the cities wanting to have that storm drain.
And you,
That would not be, Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, but the storm drain was one of the, quote, city quality improvements as opposed to what the county putting in otherwise.
yeah, if it stayed a county roadway, obviously it wouldn't have the curb and gutter and the collection system. Now, our city standard is curb and gutter and a collection
Right.
system. In fact, the state is forcing us, and the city of Pleasant Grove as well, to take a very aggressive approach with stormwater runoff. And there are some safety issues when it comes to the stormwater. There are many homes along that corridor that get flooded every single year. And they call the city and say, hey, our home got flooded, what's the city gonna do? And, our response is, that's not our road, and the drainage on that road isn't our responsibility. And so, yes, it is a request by the city, you are correct, that we want to fix that problem with this repair. And that's what the grant money and the MAG money would go towards.
And
But,
along that line of what David said, there are several homes on the downhill side of the road that do have driveways that basically start at the white line and slope right to their garage or to their home, and that is a problem all along that stretch through there. There's areas where there's drainage coming off of the east side down into the road corridor, either off of driveways and private lots or off of roadways that have some issues, and a lot of that was to be addressed in the overall project. I don't think it addresses all of it. In looking at the total fix that probably should happen on this road, in my view, it would far exceed the $9 million that we have available. The $9 million is a good start in trying to address the issues, but I know that in earlier discussions with Dagan Lewis, who's no longer with the city, the view that he had of it, he wanted a North County Boulevard type facility, and that would be probably a $30 million project. That's not what this project's looking at doing in this case.
So I'll add a couple more concerns. Jenny listed a lot from our
do
discussion.
you have a microphone there? Okay, great.
I'll hold it right up here.
That's perfect.
From our discussion, we also were concerned that the agreement called for Cedar Hills to take the road north of Murdoch Canal, but they're on Canyon Road, there's a whole bunch of those homes, some of which are in Cedar Hills, but some of which are in Pleasant Grove. And so we weren't sure what that would mean going forward to own a road where half the houses weren't in our city in terms of sewer hookups. And we've had lots of discussions about sewer hookups over the years with Pleasant Grove and how to resolve that issue. Also, if you look at the road, you'll notice that the portion that's in Pleasant Grove, you mentioned some of the intersection difficulties and line of sight and so forth. As you go farther north, they get worse. So where you have intersections and signals here in Pleasant Grove on the Cedar Hills portion of the road, there's places without signals down the line to really make the road safe. We think that we're going to need to put in signals or perhaps roundabouts at some of those key locations where people are having to make left turns onto a road with a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's not very safe, especially in winter driving conditions. And so we're looking at, down the line, the $9.3 million not being really sufficient to cover the things that need to be fixed in the road. And it seems like it was a state road and then a county road, and now all those costs are sort of being pushed onto us as a city. Our budget is much, much smaller than the state's road budget, much, much smaller than the county's road budget, and it is kind of a budget buster for us to have to think of all the things that we think the road might need. And then just from a philosophical standpoint, there's just some disagreement about what the role of a county should be in terms of a road. We've heard mentioned tonight, and we heard mentioned in our meetings, this philosophy that the county has. They have county grade roads and not city grade roads, and there's certain things that make a road be a city grade road. Where from our perspective, we're paying taxes to the county, and we would expect good roads that are safe and have proper drainage and proper other improvements. And so it seems kind of odd to us that we would pay taxes to the county, and there's no other county roads that we drive, but this one county road that we have, we're not getting a partnership from the county to help build that road to a proper level.
So how much money do you want the county to put in
Can
to
you
make
use
that
the
road right?
microphone? Sorry, Commissioner.
So how much money do you want the county to put in to make this road right?
I don't think the right answer is a dollar figure as of today. I think the right answer is a philosophy that over the next 20 years that the county would have in place a plan to improve the road and to make that road have the safety improvements that it would need. And
just to
maybe
follow-
maybe that starts with the 9.3 million now, but then becomes an additional project later. My understanding was a lot of these funds were coming from MAG, not directly from the county, and so doing those kinds of smart funding policies where you are able to get funding from other resources to help pay for these kinds of improvements is a good thing. So it wouldn't fall entirely on the county, but I think needs to be more of a vision and a plan for what that road needs, rather than just, we're going to do a temporary fix with some of the money we're able to get right now and then hand it off to the cities to do anything else.
Well, can I just clarify on the funding, where that is coming from? There's the 3.3 million that Scott talked about that came to the county from UDOT. The remainder up to the 9.3, so the other $6 million is coming from county sales tax dollars. It's divvied out and administered through the MAG process, but it is the county sales tax dollars that ultimately comes to the county commission for final approval. So that's where the funding is coming from for this project.
Well, one of the other things that follow up with what Daniel said on that is, I mean, in our meeting, we discussed, we don't even have a current conceptual plan, as I understand it, as to what was in the $9 million. What was being proposed to be done for $9 million?
Dave?
No,
Want to address that?
Yeah, we do have that. And Pleasant Grove has been working with JUB engineers. So we've discussed that in the past. And that's the improvement plan that was put together. It does include curb and gutter on the west side of the road for really most of that corridor. From Cedar Hills Drive, essentially south. And then there's some spots on the east side as well.
So we have that, we do have.
Yeah, that's the set of plans that the county has been.
Let me introduce, for those that don't know, Marty Beaumont is our Public Works Director. We hired him from JUB, and I understand that he was on the other side of the table with Dagan working the behind-the-scenes design for this project. So we haven't lost the knowledge on the project itself. It's still here. That's a good thing.
So, Commissioner Lee, I think, just to answer your question a little bit more as well, I agree with what Mr. Nelson said, which is that in order to really fix the road, in order to address all of the issues, that's a multi-million-dollar project. I think we agree with that. What our council at this point is asking of the county is not $30 million. It is use the funds that you have available, the 9.3, to make this a safer road. Just doing a mill and overlay doesn't fix the drainage. It doesn't fix many of the safety issues that Utah County residents driving on that road are facing. And one of the things that we're looking at as well, we're watching very closely the fact that Snowbird is interested in expanding in the canyon, which will most likely drive more people on Canyon Road to get to American Fork Canyon, especially if they're coming from Linden or Northern Orem. They're not going to go all the way down to North County Boulevard. So we're not asking the county to expend $30 million. We're asking you to use that 9.3 that's available to make it safer than it currently is.
Well, and I think that's what we, go ahead.
I was going to say, Snowbird, I think it's important to understand that there is no access to the Snowbird improvements from American Fork Canyon.
For now, yeah.
Pushing for it.
For now.
Well, no, there's a text.
No, they're not.
They're never going to use it, they said.
They're not. And everybody keeps making it up, but I've never heard anything that way.
I have heard it directly from them a number of times.
So for tonight's discussion,
All I know is there's no
my
plan.
recollection of the contract and the 9 point whatever that's on the table, it was to use all of that money on the project as it was defined.
And I think it was understood by Richard and by you gentlemen who know more about it than I do, that the 9 million does bring some of those additional improvements that you talk about needing to the Cedar Hills portion of that.
Right.
Question for Cedar Hills Mayor, Dave. Has your council had an opportunity to look at the plan, the way that the contract currently is written and the improvements that were designed into
I
it?
believe we had at some point, but Mr. Geddes is saying he hasn't.
Okay.
This is the first time I've seen them.
Okay,
So, to answer your question,
sure.
I understand it. So just clarification, of everything that's listed, I know this is conceptual, right? Because it's not even designed.
We can blame Marty for it because he
So-
did it. So.
I mean, would the 9.3 million do everything on this concept?
That was the intent, wasn't it, Marty?
There were previous designs that included more ask than we couldn't afford, frankly, and fitted into the 9.3. So basically what we have there is, well, that was pretty good for a couple of years ago.
Let me clarify. So the 9.3 number actually is a number that the county has come back and said, this is the maximum amount we're willing to spend. What actually happened back when this was approved at MAG was they approved the project. Our original estimate on the project was $9.2 to $9.3 million, and that was with some pretty good contingencies in there. We're at a conceptual level, and so that's what we proposed. It was proposed to be funded federally originally with federal funds that MAG gets. And so there's a 65-35 split on that funding that we have to participate. We were going to plan to use a $3.3 million from UDOT that the county was getting to be able to fund that. What happened was that the MAG approved the project, but they said, we're not going to use federal funds. We're going to trade the county, because they had some big federal projects. We'll trade them funding so they can use the federal funding on their projects, and then the county will use their sales tax or whatever to fund this project. And so that funding was approved. Well, what that meant is that the overall project had to take an 18% haircut from the $9.2 million that was originally applied for down to, I believe it was 7.8 range. That's what was approved in the funding. What has come back, though, is that in that original agreement, there was going to be a portion of that funding that was going to come to both Pleasant Grove and Cedar Hills to be able to pay for future maintenance of the road. We estimated about 10 years of maintenance on that road was up and above the 7.8 million when the project was completed. Now what's happened is we're now 3 years down the road saying, okay, can we get those same improvements done that were in the original MAG application for, now we're saying $9.3 million. We've went back and re-estimated that. We were concerned about that. So we went back to JUB and said, JUB, we want you to do it in today's dollars, re-estimate what those costs are going to be. They came back and we feel comfortable that the original plan that was proposed can be done. Now, that may not be everything that everybody thinks was in that plan. That was what the plan was, which was some improvements in Cedar Hills, curb and gutter, and some storm drainage improvements, some in Pleasant Grove as well. But if sometimes you get these thoughts out there that means that we're going to do full reconstruction of the road, excavate everything out, and go from top to bottom and get this done. That's not what was in the plan. And so, yeah, those numbers take you up to the higher numbers that we hear thrown around. We feel comfortable that the numbers, the 9.3 million, would do what was in that plan. Plus, we would hope that there would be some ability to, as we get into the final design, that we've got some contingencies in there to get a few other little things done that come up as you're constructing, but still be under the 9.3. I would say that if this does happen, that we would recommend that we do additive alternates for some of these things, so that if we don't get it under 9.3 when we get that bid, that we don't do that additive, that we cut it back and say 9.3, because I think Pleasant Grove and Cedar Hills are in the same position that we don't want to go over that 9.3 number. We don't have funding set aside or allocated for this project. Therefore, we would cut back with additive alternates. So those are some of the original discussions, and we do feel comfortable that the plan could be done for the 9.3. And again, I think we could make sure that it doesn't get done for more than that by putting additive alternates in that.
Marty, you said in the original plan there was the 10 years worth of maintenance expenses. Is that now included with the 9.3 or not?
That was, so when we applied to MAG, there was an assumption of the amount of funding that we had available to us, and that was $4.8 million. We did not say that we're willing to put all of the $4.8 million towards the project. We cut that back and said, we only need a 65-35 split to get this project approved. So we took a small portion of that 4.8 million and said, this is the amount that we're willing to put towards a project. I believe that left about $600,000 or $700,000 for each entity left over to do the maintenance. And that was kind of the original concept that was kind of pitched. Now it's kind of
That was with the assumption that the cities would own the road at that
They
time.
would
that
take
that
it
is
right away.
correct. That was the assumption.
So does that 600,000 or so still exist within the plan for each city?
No.
I don't
Not
think it
based
does.
on.
It doesn't.
But we also aren't taking the money. So that was the assumption that we would immediately take over the responsibility of that road and have to maintain it. What the county's saying is that they're willing to continue to maintain this for 30 years, which is going to take, your seal coats and your overlays and probably have to have some sort of a major thing done in 20 years or so, which kind of releases us of our responsibility for at least 30 years. Now, are we still going to have responsibilities in the future to deal with? Yes. Is the county going to have future responsibilities to deal with if they keep the road? Yes. MAG is a great way to fund some of these projects into the future, and the cities are equally as capable of applying for those funds as well. If we owned those roads and we had an intersection that was dangerous and we needed to go to MAG to apply for funding, we absolutely would do that. Is there still going to be a financial responsibility for us to do that? Yes, there's still that 65-35 split, but it's not 100% generally on these major regional roads that we would have to come up with. So,
Mayor, can I share something?
Please.
Have you budgeted for the maintenance going forward?
And the current, no,
Okay, and we
not specifically.
and we haven't either.
Right.
And I think that's what Mrs. Reese was talking about. So I just want to see if this will push the conversation along a little bit, which is that the MAG money automatically has a 10% contingency that you can apply for. It goes to the committee that the mayor and I sit on, and the commissioners as well. And if they approve that, then there I think between 400,000 and 500,000, which could be earmarked specifically for maintenance. So let's just say roughly half to you guys, roughly half to us. I say roughly because I think we need to work out on Canyon Road that's south of Cedar Hills Drive up to the canal where there's so many Pleasant Grove residents. A lot of my council doesn't feel like we should completely shoulder the burden of taking care of Pleasant Grove residents. So we need to work out an arrangement there. But if the conversation moves along and one of the hurdles is maintenance, then we could apply for that money from MAG, and that would get us all about a decade or so into the future without having to scramble for additional funds.
Mayor, could I clarify something there? Because I think you may be on just a little bit of the wrong track there. I don't think that the MAG monies can be used for maintenance of the road.
Have you talked with Sean or Andrew? Because they told me that it could be.
Okay, I could be wrong, but my understanding was that that was not an option. It had to be used for projects rather than maintenance activities.
And so it still needs to go back to our committee, and it needs to be approved by the mayors and the commissioners. But that 10% is still there. So if the size and scope of the plan increases, which it could be doing, then you can apply for that 10%.
Commissioner?
One of the things that's causing me to think about is that this is not something that is totally funded on the county's role either. County has a big commitment to maintain that road, and we've got to come up with that money from somewhere as well. So don't think that we've got money sitting there prepared to do that. We're going to have to find it.
I get that, but the county already agreed to do the mill and fills for the next 30 years.
That's correct,
So
and all I'm
you're
saying
going to have
is,
to come up with that from somewhere. What I'm saying is the additional 10% or so, that needs to specifically go to the cities, because again, you can't bind future commissioners to do what you want them to do. And so if this 250, let's say 400,000 or so is with the county, what's to stop future commissioners from saying, we're not going to give you any more of that money because we need it on our future project? It needs to go to the cities, or the writing needs to be so clear that it says that the money goes to the cities for maintenance.
I'm not sure what money you're talking
But
about.
the county has a lot bigger ticket maintenance item than the cities do, even jointly. So to me, at least a portion of that money, if we're gonna have maintenance money, should come to the county.
See, that's
For the surface treatment.
But no, it shouldn't, because you already have your responsibility for taking care of the road for the next 30 years. The city also has our responsibility for taking care of that road
think so.
as well in terms of our maintenance.
I don't agree with that.
But the sponsors of this project were the two cities on a county-owned road. I get that. But if we can apply for the 10% extra to go towards maintenance of the road, and then the county were to just take that money and use it for their maintenance, what's the purpose of applying for it in the first place?
Well, I don't think that's even entered into our conversations relative to taking your money to do our maintenance. We're not trying to do that.
But
We're just taking on an obligation.
It sounds like that's what you guys were saying, is that that you have your own maintenance needs, and so if that 10% existed, that you would want to take that. It sounded
No.
like Richard was saying that.
No.
I
Well,
heard
In-
something a
in-
little different.
In my mind, the county ought to at least have a portion of that.
Yeah.
It
If
shouldn't
it
all of
is,
So I heard something just a little different. We had an agreement prior to the one that's in front of us where a lesser amount of money was going to go into the project itself, and then dollars were going to be set aside to help the cities plan for maintenance for 10 years. But under that plan, the cities took ownership of the road immediately.
That's correct.
Correct.
The plan that's in front of us now, with time moving on and further discussion, whatever monies are available are being applied to the project so that the project itself can come up as close as we can to these needs that we've identified. The county has agreed to retain ownership, therefore retain maintenance to the best of their ability for a period of 30 years. And then after the 30 years, the city and the cities take ownership of the road along with future maintenance that goes along with that. That's about as simple.
Well, and some existing maintenance immediately.
Yeah, we are agreeing to take care of signs, potholing,
Right.
things of that nature, snow
And our cities
plowing.
might be different there. When we push snow, we're driving across the same road, right? To push the snow on both sides of that street. So we're just going to kind of push that one too. Yes, it's going to change what we're able to do. We're going to have to adjust things, but our residents want this road done. They want it fixed, and we see this as a good way to get there. The striping, the little things. We have a crew that goes out and they take care of potholes. They're going to adopt this one as well. Will it be perfect? I don't think it's going to be perfect under any city's ownership, nor the county's. I just don't see that in the state of Utah. That's the reality of roads. There's a much bigger issue here than Utah County, Pleasant Grove, and Cedar Hills when it comes to road funding. And hopefully we'll get some of that dealt with gas tax reformation that just took place, and maybe a resurrection of Prop 1 in a different form. But those are very good issues for us to jointly work on with the legislature. I think right now what we're looking at is an even better offer on the table from the county to take a look at fixing what can be fixed today with today's dollars, deferring the ownership piece, but picking up some of the maintenance in a shared way. The way I understood it when we were talking, it was like, hey, if they reach out and say, we can't do da-da-da-da-da, could you guys get to it? And we happen to be available to do that. Yeah, we're going to jump in and help because it's our road. All of us.
let me just say something, because I'm afraid we got off onto the wrong track. Not that, what you said, no. Not the wrong track, we're not here as a county as an adversary to the cities in this. We view as we're trying to be a partner with you in this. And so even though it may not appear that way, it truly, from our perspective, truly is attempting to be a good partner with you. And that's why we went to the agreement that we went to, whereas before we basically said if we maintain ownership, we view that we would maintain it to a county standard, and we've came to an agreement that now says, no, we'll keep it for 30 years, keep it maintained, by the way, to a certain level in the agreement, And so we're not attempting to hurt the cities in this. We're trying to really be a partner and help.
I actually saw that as over and above what was originally
Yeah.
proposed.
Thank
It
you.
would have gone way beyond the 1.2 or whatever was available.
I want to touch upon Commissioner Ellerson's comment there and trying to be a good partner, and it ties back to a comment about, county standards. I happen to live in unincorporated county, and so pretty much all of the roads I drive on are county roads. And I can assure you something we get a lot of are some potholes, and something we absolutely never see is curb and gutter. And as I'm reviewing these plans, I'm going, wow, here's the county. It's not perfect, right? I mean, certainly we'd love to be able to make this a bigger, better project, but we don't have the funds for it. But from my perspective, we're trying to say, look, we're willing to implement some of these very city standards, despite that not being a practice of the commission, in an effort to try and help the cities here. And I would just throw that out as a thought there to keep in the back of your mind that the residents that you mentioned, we're all residents of the county, and I agree with that. But if you live in unincorporated county, the thought of a curb and gutter for your kids to have as a safety barrier walking from the bus stop the quarter mile or a half mile to their house after they get dropped off doesn't exist. So this upgrade and this joint effort is really empowering the county to help the cities a little bit better to get this road headed in the right direction. Perfect? No, but we're headed in the right direction, and I think this gets us a good start in getting this road to a level that meets that safety standard and again addresses some of those more city urban type of needs, despite the county typically not engaging in that process. And I can testify that they don't, again, from just a personal standpoint. So I'd just throw that out as a thought as you mill around what's on the table there.
And I think you're right. I mean, this is a unique situation in that it's not an unincorporated part of the county, yet the county still made this trade knowing that Canyon Road is a regional road
Right.
in a busy area. And so that makes it the situation a little different. And again, from our perspective, it's the fact that what we're asking is that there are funds available. We're asking it to be, it's not going to be upgraded to a city standard. We've already discussed that there are several things that still won't be fixed with this 9.3 million, but it will make it safer for those residents who are driving on it. And from a small city, and I know you're from a small town as well, again, asking a city of our size to immediately find $20,000 in the budget just from year one, and then in the future when we take ownership of it, several $1 million to do mills and overlays and all that such, that's asking a lot for a city of our size. And so what we're hoping that we can come to some kind of agreement with the county where they'll recognize that there are significant safety issues on a unincorporated part of a county road that they own, and fix some of those issues that need to be addressed, and understand that we're at a point where we're not capable without, again, cutting services or raising taxes of maintaining a county road.
Can I ask you a question, Mary, just following up on yours? If there's money left over in that 10% that you're talking about, and that went towards the overall maintenance of the road, does that help to alleviate I mean, I know it's not a perfect scenario because you got long-term issues that are there too, but is it a starting point?
I think it is. I mean, and I'm not speaking for the council, but I do think it is. So I'd like to know what you think your portion of that would be. Let's just say, for argument's sake, there's $400,000.
I guess what I'm looking at is, as I look at the cost that the cities would have in the maintenance per the agreement, David said, somewhere in the $20,000 a year range. When you look at that compared to a seal coat or an overlay, the county's portion of that is going to be multiple times that. So if you take the cost of that road over the 30-year life that the county would operate it, what are those seal coat costs, the overlay costs? I don't know that off the top of my head. You bring that back to an annual cost, look at that in comparison to what the city's maintenance cost would be, and have some sort of a proration of that. I don't know what that number is, but I would assume it would be a pretty big chunk of it.
Okay.
So I appreciate your helping us to see the issue from your perspective. and I appreciate that you're wanting to be a good partner. And maybe it might help for you to understand how it looks from our perspective as a city, so that we can kind of come to a better understanding. So from our perspective as a city, we're seeing that there's been $9.3 million allocated for a project that MAG has agreed to. And it appears to us that the county is saying, we're not going to spend that money to fix the road unless you take ownership of it in 30 years.
Andrew, you want to drag a chair up to the table?
That seems like a lot of pressure to put on a small city to say, yeah, we know there's these significant issues. We know your residents are having some safety issues on the road. Wouldn't you love to fix those? But only if we hold out this stick that, you know, you have to take ownership of the road, or we're not going to bother to pay attention to your concerns. So that's sort of the perspective that it looks like, combined with the perspective that our total road budget is only $250,000 for a year. It's much smaller than a county or a state budget. And so looking 30 years down the future, I have to think of my kids living in this town. And you're talking about if we have to then do significant improvements on the road 30 years out, you're talking about perhaps doubling our annual budget on roads. And I just don't know where that money comes from.
So, and in regards to that, I think that's actually the beauty of the way this is orchestrated, because you have 30 years. Cedar Hills is certainly going to look significantly different than it does today in 30 years from now. I would anticipate as you get housetops in there. So, are you, okay, and that's, I don't know that, so that's part of my question. Where's your budgeting to come? Do you get the opportunity in 30 years to have a little bit different tax base, and so that some of those needs are addressed over time? Because it's hard to say. I mean, when I was a kid in Bluffdale, I had to rode my horse to Hardee's. I lived in Bluffdale, and we'd ride our horse down Redwood Road in the summertime to Hardee's in Riverton. You know, I would have never thought 30 years from now it would have drastically changed, but obviously areas and regions change. So I think within that time frame, in your budgeting process, looking down the road, do you have an opportunity to plan that maintenance in over that time frame based on tax bases and where you can come from?
And the problem is we are 97% built out as far as houses, and we have 2, maybe 3 commercial lots that are open. That's it. So there's not a lot of growth that we're looking at in the future in terms of tax revenue.
I maybe just a comment to you. I think the county understands where the cities are at in your limited dollars that are available for road maintenance. You know, we get about $3 million a year. We maintain about 540 miles of road over a very large geographic area. We have needs throughout the county. As we've gone through some exercises here the last couple of years in working with the legislature on some of the gas tax methods that they've looked at in trying to help fund roadways, we feel like we have about a third of the dollars we need to maintain the roads properly. And that's, you know, when I look at this road, it's 5 miles out of 500 that we have to maintain. And when I step back and take that 30,000 foot view, you know, it's one part of the whole big picture. And while it's extremely important to Cedar Hills and Pleasant Grove because it's right here in your own backyard, it's one little piece of the puzzle in the whole county picture. So, and my responsibility as the Public Works Director in the county is I have to look at the whole thing. So it's a fine line to try to walk that. And Mayor, I think along your lines where you're saying we want to have something nailed down, if we're doing this work in this year and this year, and we nail that down so tight, I don't know that we can with what all of our other road responsibilities are throughout the county. And we can put it in there that we're going to maintain it to a certain level, and we'll do our best to do that. But to say, okay, I'm going to overlay it at year 15, I don't know that we can commit to that.
There's a process that plays through my mind, and I might not get this exactly right. So those of you that are more familiar, please feel free to jump in. As we sit in our meetings where we talk about the projects that are going to receive MAG money to be worked on, we typically do look at what we're doing in the middle of the county, what we're doing in the south of the county, and what we're doing in the north of the county. And as we look to the future, I think a lot of the roads now are more towards the south and out to the west. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the north and the east, there are fewer available projects that qualify for work. I can easily see over the next 30 years, periodically, not every year, but periodically, this road's going to come up as a subject matter. You know what? It's time for the North County to receive a project, and this one here looks like the likely one to get that attention. Someone steps forward, it gets on the tip or the stip and whatever, and it makes its way through the process.
And quite honestly,
Is that a fair representation?
as we go through the MAG process, and David and Marty have been part of this, as I look at it from a county perspective, I've got a road out in the south end of the county, it's 9600 south, it comes up off the Payson Main Street exit and goes west.
Right.
For a county road, it has a lot of traffic on it. When I compare it to this road out here, it has peanuts. And when you start looking at that on a global basis, it's hard to say, okay, I really need the money out there when I've got this need here, or
Right.
a road in downtown Provo. And, you know, it's, the roads with the higher traffic volumes typically tend to weigh a lot heavier in the ranking at the MAG process, so.
And I don't know if all of our councils are aware of that, but that's one additional method over and above looking at what Mayor Gigi was talking about with the 10% contingency, if you will. This is a way to maybe target in, and if there's a particular intersection or an area that's lacking in safety or something, if the mayors, whoever the mayors are at that time, get together and have a discussion with MAG, it's very likely that, you know, I'm looking around the table and I go, whoever the commissioners are and whoever the public works directors are, you know, I mean, but that's what happens. We make these lists and they move up the rank, and about every third year, boom, you know, you have a project that pops up and it has more dollars to it than if you had tried to just do this out of BNC road funds.
Yeah. Marty, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I know we had this discussion over a month ago, so I can't recall what you said the estimate would be for Pleasant Grove annually to maintain our portion. Is it the same as Cedar Hills, or do we have those different needs? And can you remind me how much it would be annually for Pleasant Grove to maintain our portion?
So the thing that we've really looked into is the snowplow. So the stormwater, it seems like we've already been doing that. We aren't adding a lot more to our system from what this project is. We have a little section on 1800 North that will be added, but around 1800 North. So we didn't really calculate that into it. We estimate that it's going to cost us about $4,000 a year for our snow plowing costs. That's for salt, that's for equipment, that's for a guy. In the discussions, we talked about Cedar Hills costs being between $2,500 and $3,000 a year. To be able to do that, we just went lane miles. We figured 30 storms or 30 trips and 10 big storms a year, and kind of came up with those numbers. And so we kind of looked at it about $4,000 for that. I would say the signs that we've got some crosswalks that we're agreeing to do in this. There's not going to be a whole lot of costs there, maybe another $1,000 a year to do signs and striping with our guys, because we're only agreeing to do the crosswalks and any signage along the road. So those aren't replacement meters.
So can I
Sure.
ask a question? So Mr. Bunker is saying that our cost is going to be 4 to 5 times greater than yours. Can you guys put your heads together and figure out what the disconnect is?
Again, I hadn't calculated any of the stormwater things in that, and went through and figured out how much time it's going to take my guys to go clean all of the drainage features that are along that road. That probably, I assume that's in your calculations, David, on doing all those calculations. I'm not sure what else is in there.
The snow's heavier the further north you go, so it takes us a little more time.
We've experienced that. It's true.
No, you know, our numbers for snowplow probably are a little higher than yours. And that could be part of it, the storm drain. We are adding a major storm drain facility in Cedar Hills that Pleasant Grove would not be. So that's probably, and it'll be year round. That storm drain and maintenance has to be year round. It's not just through the winters.
Marty, I have another question. So according to the contract, the county needs to maintain the road at a 70, I'm going to try and get this right, CPI?
PCI.
PCI, dang it. We're so close. So close.
Pavement Condition Index.
So if that's maintained for the next 30 years, when we reach that 30-year point and it's been maintained to that level, in your estimate, doesn't that give us another few years or 10 years, or I mean, it's not like it's going to start deteriorating from year one. It's going to be maintained for the next 30 years. So doesn't that really even prolong the life even more and give the city some more time to figure out a plan?
Yes. So it's very difficult to look 30 years out and tell what the condition of the road will be due to the traffic volumes and loads and things of that nature. I think as we were looking at this with the county on saying, okay, we need to make sure that the county is committing to keeping this road in a very good condition. So at 30 years, we're not getting what we have now because there's no way for us to do that. And I think that's what we're trying to do with saying, okay, a PCI value of 70 is a good road. It's in very good condition at that point. And so at that point, we could take it over and then take on that ongoing maintenance. That ongoing maintenance isn't a full reconstruct at year one, yes. Down the road, we're going to have to look at overlays or a mill and fill or, maybe what they're doing, what they would be doing with this project. But that's probably in the 10 to 15 years out range if it's properly maintained through its life. Now, if they just leave it from day one, yeah, we're going to get a terrible road. But that's what they're committing to in this agreement is giving us a good road at the end of the 30 years.
And I think
What is
that's
the language at the end of the 30 years? Was
That's
there
gonna
a,
be
it's 70.
70%.
but was there a reconciliation or an evaluation or something? And then
oh yeah.
what was the,
Well, the
I don't
70
remember the
PCI is-
exact.
The 70 PCI is the reconciliation. So if the road is not a 70 PCI, we're not taking the road.
and
If it's
they-
at a
We would have to
50,
do whatever
they've
we
got
would
to
get
get
on
it
Have to
to
fix
that.
it to that.
And that would most likely be the time that we would, all three of us, be showing up at MAG going, Andrew, you're not going to be there, but, Andrew, time for a project.
I do have a question, and this is probably for Richard. With the technology where it's at right now, and if you were going to hand over a road, when would you do your last mill and fill? And by the way, we're not going to have too many potholes if they're maintaining the road. Is that correct?
That's correct, because if we do the project, you start off with essentially a new road. And by keeping
That excites me, by the way.
keeping that maintenance up on that regular basis, that, roughly 7-year time frame, you do some sort of a surface treatment on it. It prolongs the life of the roadway and keeps it in good condition.
Okay, so you would do a mill and fill at some point, an overlay at some point, and then a mill and fill?
What we'd more than likely do is the project as it stands right now with what's in the concept plan, and Marty, correct me if I have this wrong since you prepared it, I think is not a full depth reclamation, but it's like a 6-inch new surface course. Is that correct? That we'd start with.
So the original concept was that all of the existing pavement that's here would be gone. They would get all the way down, mill into the base, recompact the base, not necessarily dig it all out, and then give a brand new 6-inch cross section of asphalt. And that takes care of some of the current high crowns that we have in the road and things like that.
The
So
cracking that's there now.
but
that
yeah,
sort of thing.
cracks, things of that nature. They're getting all the way down to base for the entire road section and recompacting that base, which should have a decent amount of base under it. It just needs to get rid of the cracks in the road and give us a good pavement when you're done.
So really, for the first few years, the maintenance costs would go down minus the snow plow but the striping, the initial work that would be done, potholes. I mean, that would
Wouldn't be
be
many potholes to patch.
right.
so-
Anything in the first
Yeah,
5
there's not
years.
going to be, so that maintenance cost should go down at least for the first few years.
If they're properly,
It should be, it's in the county's interest to keep it up, because if it goes down too low, it's gonna cost more to
Right.
get it back up. And so, I mean,
Your
as a
preservation
resident
dollars are
of
a lot
Pleasant
more
Grove, I'm looking at a
effective.
30-year new road.
I wish the state thought that way.
Well,
Well, and
because
that's,
it's in the county's interest to keep it.
and I agree with you. That's another issue that we need to join hands on and help our local rep and get involved in this legislative session, because I think that there's issues there as well. But the question at hand is, there's $9.3 million sitting here waiting to be used to do the things that we've all discussed. And if we take advantage of that, then the road gets effectively rebuilt and maintained for the next 30 years, ongoing. And then there's a reconciliation at the end of the 30 years where we get back together and we make sure that the road either is already at 70 or above, or it's brought back up to 70 or above. And then the ownership switches to the cities. That's like one of the best plans I've heard of so far when it comes to roads.
Mayor, can I?
Please.
I don't think, is it working? So for commissioners, thank you for coming. I know this is not your official forum, but thank you for answering the question. So there's been a rumor out there or something that's been said is let's call the commissioners, let's call the county's bluff. Let's just let them use the monies they have and see, and they're going to keep ownership of the road and call it good. Can you answer? There's a big balloon sitting in the middle of the room. Can you either help us pop it or let it fly? Right?
Like we just do a county.
It's been said here that, hey, the county's just bluffing.
On what? On what?
On the 9 point, on the monies to be used.
Be used?
On ownership.
On ownership. Can you help me with that?
Years.
Yeah. I'm not even talking about the agreement. I'm just saying, let's forget about that. Let's just let the county hold on to the road, use the monies that's already there, 9.3, and let them keep the road. Let's call their bluff. It's been said in at least Pleasant Grove's city council meeting.
Well, what would happen is we'd fix the road to county standard. And that's what would happen.
Is that the 3.3?
That would be basically a mill and fill.
Right, that'd be the mill and fill.
That'd be the 3.3, not the 9.3.
And then the other money would go back to MAG.
Right.
So my
That's just
question
the
then
3.3.
is, for the county
And
commissioners,
money's,
again,
on that- in that
understanding
equation.
that 9.3 does not raise it to a city standard, that there are issues that are still gonna not be fixed. What we are hoping, we have been hoping anyway, is that we could come to some sort of agreement with the county where we recognize that not everything we want is gonna get fixed. There's gonna be plenty of safety issues still there, even after the 9.3 million is spent. And we're asking that the county would use that 9.3 to fix the road without requiring us to take ownership or to immediately start some maintenance, and then give us some time to figure out how we're gonna come up with $20,000 a year to maintenance and how we're gonna take ownership in 30 years. Because as Daniel said, we're built out, so it's not that we've got a bunch of money that's gonna be coming in later on.
Yeah.
And understanding from the county's perspective, if you know it's unsafe and that it's your road, our hope is that you would expend the funds that you have available to you to go ahead and get it fixed. And even if you only do, I mean, if you decide, no, that's not an option, and so Cedar Hills is out and Pleasant Grove's in, you're still gonna have to be maintaining curb and gutter and, everything else that's on Pleasant Grove side. So again, we felt like it was a compromise to say, we're not asking for $30 million to fix it, as Mr. Nelson said, to all of the issues that are there. We're asking you just to do some of the basics to make it safe, and then let's go back to the drawing board and talk about ownership in the future and give us some time to figure out how that's gonna work for us.
So as I'm understanding, you're wanting us to do that, to fix it with the 9.3 and not have any agreement with the cities. And then from there, talk about ownership
Right.
after.
Like, let's go back, and figure out how we can make that work, because there's gonna be quite a bit that we need to do on our side to finish making it a city
So
standard
what
road.
would we do on a maintenance side for that? Considering that we usually don't maintain that kind of a road.
Right.
Do we let part of it sit and not maintain?
You mean like the snow plowing and the pothole repair,
Well,
or what
no,
maintenance?
no, I'm just, the width of the road, that we typically don't do, the curb gutter, yeah, all that, while it's sitting there, just
And-
wondering.
Council, you guys can weigh in here, but I think if that would be something we'd be willing to discuss, that, okay, it's a county road, and there's gonna be some maintenance that we're responsible for a period of time until we
Yeah.
figure out ownership, but $20,000 is just a lot for us right now to
Yeah,
take
what,
on.
if you,
10,000, 25,
$2 a piece.
2,500 homes, so most of those are kids.
because ultimately, and there's no secret to this, we would love to have the city own the road.
Right.
And that was kind of originally, the city was gonna take it and then use all those monies to upgrade it and take it from there. And so there's no secret about that. The county would love to have the city own the road. But we also recognize that roads are a deteriorating asset. They cost money, they cost to continue to go on with them. And so we're trying to find a way, I think, as we've been going through this process, we're trying to find a way to have a nice road there, road system there, and use that whole $9.3 million, if it's 9.3, 9.2, I can't, 9.3, and find a way that we can maintain that all the way through it and eventually get to a change of the ownership. I know I'm just kind of going in circles, but I mean, to the mayor's point on that contingency money, and now that Andrew, clarifies some of those, I wouldn't mind entertaining and seeing what can be done with that extra 10% if that's there at the end. I don't know if it will be there. If we spend it all, then we don't have it. But if there is some money there at the end, if that can be used for maintenance, for offset, if that seems to be the stick for a while that's holding this whole thing off, I wouldn't mind looking at and seeing what can be done.
Right, and that's what we're asking for, is time to figure it out, but we've been told that if we don't sign this agreement by the end of the year, it's off the table, and you're just gonna do a mill and overlay, and too bad.
Well,
And we're
part
asking.
of it is, and I started to cut you off, but this road's been sitting out there a long time,
I agree.
and it's been needing, and it's getting to the point to where if we go into some of the fail rates of this thing, the costs just continue to go up at a higher rate. And so we're at a point now where it's like, let's get some agreement in place so that we can go forward and not get down into the real cost of fixing a road that's really substandard.
Commissioner Lee, or can you answer this question, or the other commissioners? What was the reason the state handed it over to the county, and what's the reason specifically the county wants to hand it over to the cities? I mean, obviously it's financial. I mean, is there something else I don't know in case a resident asks and wants to know what the reason that?
All you
I mean,
talk on
or
that, 'cause
is
I
this,
wasn't there during that.
is this
whole discussion.
specific to just Pleasant Grove and Cedar Hills, or is this kind of happening with other county and state roads in Utah, with it being kind of passed down to the cities with the roads that run through their cities?
Scott gave a summary at the front end of this, and I'll go back to that, where initially, when we built North County Boulevard, in order to get right-of-way money to help offset part of the cost of that road, we needed it to be a state road. So we negotiated with the state that they would take North County Boulevard, gave us access to the corridor preservation money. And so, but they said, all right, we need to work a trade. Canyon Road then becomes a local road. And so we then had conversations with both communities, with the county, moving down the road, that said, okay, we've got to make this a local road in order for that to work. And so from a county perspective, we were going down the road on the hopes, as Scott indicated, and even to the degree that when you went and applied for the money from MAG, it was with the understanding that it would become a city road. Well, that didn't happen. But we felt like we still had an obligation as a county to take the road. Okay? And so that was what we did. We took the road with the understanding we would continue to try and work with the cities to find a solution.
I don't think our city council was involved in any of that agreement.
Yes, sir, they were.
Were we involved?
Well, we never said we wanted to do it, though.
It might
That's what I'm
precede,
saying.
it might precede your current council.
Probably 10 years ago.
I think
The-
Dave was there.
Both
I was
cities were involved with it.
Not a formal agreement.
But there was no agreement?
No, there was not. That's what I'm saying. Both cities were involved with the discussion and with the concept of it.
Was anyone here from our, was it class?
Yeah, Daniel?
You're saying you never owned 4800 West before the county, I thought you traded the road with the state.
It was in American Fork, Pleasant Grove, Cedar Hills, and Highland.
And Linden.
And Linden, yeah, it was a go out turn on to 700 North. It was the 5 cities road.
And maybe I could, I'm Andrew Jackson with Mountain Land Association of Governments, and to continue on your question, Councilmember Lamone, about every month, the State Transportation Commission meets, and probably 6 out of those 12 meetings, they have what's called a jurisdictional transfer, where they're transferring roads that used to be state roads are transferring over to a city or a county. As the state builds additional roads and lane miles within that, so you're putting in a new state road or you're adding extra lanes to a state road, they often look at a swap where they're building a new road that becomes a state road, and then they have a mile per mile. And in fact, the Transportation Commission at that time was talking about before they would do any new state roads, there would be a 2-for-1 swap, so that the local jurisdictions would take over 2 miles of road for every 1 mile of new state road. Now, that didn't go through, and we were able to get kind of almost a mile-for-mile swap here. But as you look at expansion of I-15 and other state roads, they're looking at which roads function as a state road, which roads function as regional roads, et cetera, or local roads, and they make those transfers looking at that. But at the last meeting, I think there's probably 3 or 4 transfers that happened there. And in order to get this funding, like the Commissioner was saying, it can only be used on a state road. We had that interpreted to say a state road or a road likely to become a state road. And so there was that money would be used on this road because it was going to become a state road. And at the legislature, in order to finalize that, they had to have a jurisdictional transfer. It had gone through one legislative session, and it was going through that second legislative session. The Transportation Commission and the Interim Transportation Committee was concerned about making this transfer before they put additional funds in there. And that's when the county said, okay, we'll do that. And there was a discussion at the legislature. I was in the meeting when they were talking about whether or not to continue funding because they weren't sure if this was going to become a state road and then a county road. And I said, well, the issue's not that it's going to be transferred. It's just, is it transferred to the city or transferred to the county? But they could go ahead with that jurisdictional transfer.
Thank you for that history on that.
I do have a couple of more questions or statements or both. And I just want to clarify here. So in 30 years, when we take ownership, when will the last mill and fill have happened? Just if we have the same technology, we're not like hoverboarding and...
That would save the roads a lot.
Yeah.
Typically, what you look at is around a 7-year mark on
Okay.
when the work would happen. So if you follow that pattern, we'd be at year 28. You'd have the last surface treatment prior to the transfer at year 30.
Okay.
Assuming you were on exactly that 7-year cycle. So.
Because I know that there's a, you hit 80%, and then, or it's not 80%, it's just 80, right? 80 PCI. Training me well. And then when you hit 70, that you do actually start to decline rapidly.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a curve that as you, in the early years, while the road's good, it's fairly flat. You hit a certain point, it drops off very quickly.
And
if you can do the work while it's still up here in good shape,
right.
You bump it back up. It doesn't go back up to 100 like you'd have with a brand new road,
Right.
but it stays up in that upper end.
So I don't know what our negotiating power is if I would love an 80%. My next question is, and I hate it when government bogs down progress, and we've had a month here of learning. Why are we too late to start in the spring?
What we'd have on it, in order to have a spring start, so say if we wanted to start construction in March, we would have to bid it somewhere around the 1st of February. In order to have the bid ready for the 1st of February, we would have to have the design done around the 1st of January, somewhere in that time frame.
Okay.
Design time on this road, 5 miles of roadway, curb gutter, existing, improvements, things like that. Marty, 6 months, Dave? 4 to 6 months. So you back that off that much farther. In order to have a March start, we'd have had to start probably back in July, August timeframe with the design.
So what if Pleasant Grove decides
I'm
to...
not done yet.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Well, it's in relation to that question. If Pleasant Grove decides to go ahead with the project and we decide in the next week or so, make an official
5
vote.
minutes.
5 minutes, no, because we can't officially vote, but yeah, it's not on the agenda.
Oh, can't vote.
But if we make an official vote in the next week or so, what would we be looking at? Same?
Time frame would still be the same, but that would, for where we're at the, end of November now, 1st of December, I would think we'd be looking at probably August time frame that we'd be ready to go to bid. My recommendation at that point is August is probably not the best time to bid for prices, so we'd be better off to wait until about this time next year. There is some work with, some of the irrigation ditches, things like that we'd want to do off-season over the winter months, and then be ready to get into pavement work in spring of 18 would be my thinking. And Dave and Marty, I'd look to you for concurrence on that if you think that's.
Well, hasn't there already been some design work or some engineering on it?
It's all been conceptual, so they still need to
Okay.
go do the survey and do the actual design of it, so.
All right. And then my next thing is, well, I have a couple of them. I wish that the state could hear every conversation that we have about roads. I'm serious. I don't know if I could hashtag every conversation because it's probably 80% of my time that we spend talking about roads. I don't know what the forum is for us to get the word to the state that city councils are sick and tired of talking about road funding. And I don't know if you have any influence there, but it is a major, major concern for every single city. And we're looking at more rooftops and more money. I thought that we were poor, but after listening to you, I'm very grateful for our road budget. And we're going to add 10,000 homes in the next 30 years, roughly. And the road is already failing, actually, traffic-wise. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah.
I live on 30 East, which everybody then takes off, and so now 30 East is failing. But my question probably is for Jenny, because I think she probably needs some, what is it about the road that you don't think you're going to get in the 9.3? What, you keep talking about that you're not going to get something.
Right. So, and that's probably a question best asked of David, but there were some drainage issues that still wouldn't be fixed. There were, oh, sorry. Oh, I have two. I don't need to.
You can have two.
There were some drainage issues that weren't being fixed. There were still portions of the road that would not have curb and gutter. But again, David can answer that question better than I can.
Yeah, so the curb and gutter is only on a portion of the road on the Cedar Hills side. And actually, there's even portions in Pleasant Grove that don't get curb and gutter on both sides of the street as well.
But isn't that included in the 9.3?
No.
The curb and gutter on?
Not all of it.
Some, but not all.
Only portions.
Can't afford
So
it.
it doesn't bring the project up to a city standard road. It's not a Pleasant Grove standard. It's not a Cedar Hills standard. There's not going to be sidewalk and pedestrian access and crosswalks and things like that.
It's not an 8th North in Orem.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It's not even going to widen the pavement section out to where you have like a full 3-lane section with shoulders and things like that.
and turning lanes and things. So
No bike lanes is a big deal.
yeah, no bike lanes in the current design.
I think we did include the bike lanes, didn't we?
Not in this current design
Just
that
the shoulders.
yeah. So there are things that are not
Okay.
included. So if we're talking that this would become a city road, it's definitely not up to a city road standard.
And I know drainage, especially on the east side of Canyon Road, is a concern for us, especially on a few of those steep streets that come onto Canyon Road. We get several-inch ice patches on Canyon Road because there's no drainage there, and people come off that road and slide right into Canyon Road because they can't stop. And those are the issues that aren't going to be addressed even with the 9.3 million.
Now, some of those curb and gutter issues, though, will probably be addressed with development, right?
There's some potential, yes, along that corridor. Probably less potential for development to do those improvements in Cedar Hills than there is in Pleasant Grove, because typically development, they buy large tracts of ground and we have required all developers to put the improvements in on Canyon Road.
Right.
If they've made application, they have to do all the improvements on Canyon Road.
Right. In fact, one of
But
the-
as you know, we have many lots that are just single lots that front Canyon Road, both in Pleasant Grove and in Cedar Hills, that just access directly. Those won't be improved unless there's a project like this to do it.
And we've actually worked with both cities on where development has happened to make sure those improvements have gone in. We've done that jointly on a couple of different projects that have happened in the last couple of years.
I have a few comments that I want to make too. So I've been on the city council for about 3 years, and I'd never heard that anyone in our city, ever said that we'd take on that road. And it's come up maybe 4 or 5 times that we would possibly own Canyon Road. And every time it's come up, it's been unanimous that we felt like it was a county road, that traffic going through our town on that road is going from town to town. It's not inter-company or inter-city traffic. And so we've seen no reason why it should be a city road, I believe, as a council. I can't speak for all the council, but it seems like we've been unanimous every time it's come up 4 or 5 times. And during this time period where it keeps coming up, I know for a fact that it was on the schedule to be worked on if we didn't keep entertaining the idea of taking the road. And we've never shown any signs within our city council that we were going to take it, that I've seen. And the only thing that's postponing it is we keep entertaining, someone keeps entertaining, not in the city council in Cedar Hill circle, but someone keeps entertaining the idea of the city's taking it. I think it would have been fixed 2 years ago, and I think the county would fix it up so that it wouldn't keep causing problems. You know, they can't just do an overlay every year and expect it not to have problems. And I think that had we just said no a few months ago, they would have fixed it up to the county standard this spring, but this has delayed it again. And I'm not going to talk on the names of the county commissioners, but a county commissioner came and I said to that county commissioner, you guys swapped the roads. You found out how expensive it would be. You have a lot of other projects out there, such as the $150 million project out there for the BRT. And you had buyer's remorse for taking the road, and that's why you want the cities to take it. And that's the county commissioner said yes. Just straight up yes. And that really did not leave a good taste in my mouth or other people in our city's mouth. And I just think that we need to let them fix it up to their standard. And then when they don't have the leverage of this money sitting out there that they're going to give us if we take it and not give us if we don't, they just need to fix it. And then, you know, if it's fixed up to county standards and if it's a good road and whatnot, then maybe we'll entertain it at that point. But to take it in the situation that it's at right now or commit to taking it right now, even in 30 years, the agreement that we looked at had a lot of holes in it that left us paying the bill for repairs in during the 30-year period. It's a county road. They should take care of it. They should keep it up to county standards. If it's dangerous, they don't want liability on their hands, and they shouldn't. If it's a danger with ice, they should fix that. There's money set aside for it. They should fix it. They should fix where it's a danger and make it a good road. And after that point, if they get it up to the standard that it should be, and if there's a reason for the cities to take it, which I haven't seen any yet, then maybe I'd consider voting for it then, but maybe not. But at this point, it makes no sense to me for me to vote for this, personally.
I think that ties into the question, and if you're okay with it having it a county standard. It's not going to have curb and gutter. It's not going to have the drainage. It's not going to have the improvements. And if you're okay with that, then you have to explain that to your citizens why you're willing to walk away from an improvement now. And I recognize there's a $20,000 issue there and upfront cost. So what I would suggest is, as an idea that we could float around, what if we try and offset that upfront cost? Maybe we say initially next year the county will take care of all that. The following year, you've got to take 10%, and we give you 5 years to work it out in your budget. You've got 30 years to figure out how to pay for it as a city road at city standard, so that we give you a time frame to work that into your budget. But if you don't want to be at the negotiating table, then the county will have it at a county level, and we'll do it. And
I don't think it's at a county level now. It'd be nice to see what it was like. Maybe it'd be acceptable at a county
Come visit
level.
me, and I'll bet you it's probably pretty close, because I'll drive you down the county roads around my house. That was my comment I was alluding to earlier, is, you have to understand what the county level is. And so what we're trying to do is come up with a good solution to really improve this road. And if you want to walk away from the good option that's here to get us started down the right track, that's your choice, but recognize the county's position is it is a county road, so we'll treat it as same as the county roads in Genoa, in Benjamin, wherever else we have those roads. So it'll be kept at that standard. That's not what I want. I want the citizens to have a safer, better road, and I think we're really close to that here. If we can work on that initial, I recognize your 20,000 initial upfront hit. I think that's something we could probably talk about and see if we can negate that and help soften that blow for you. But let's get it done to where we truly improve the safety of the road for the citizens, and that's kind of in your court there.
So if you had a county road that had significant drainage issues so that there was ice on the road, steep hill coming into the county road, ice ponding on the road causing people to slide, what would you do to fix that at a county standard? And why can't you do that with this road?
I can tell you what we had to do at my house. we bought a cement truck and dumped a bunch of dirt and poured a bunch of cement because nobody was showing up to fix it, where the irrigation water was puddling and creating puddle issues in the wintertime.
So you're saying so you're saying the county doesn't fix safety problems with
They
the
eventually did. It took a couple years before the budgeting was in place to get that fixed, and we are on UDOT road.
So maybe the
good
issue there
correction.
is
But-
the county needs to put in place proper funding mechanisms so that they
And
can.
and it's, I
improve
think
the
the
safety of
theme
roads
here
as
is that there's always a funding problem with the road, and that's the underlying point here, is there's always a
But
funding
yeah,
problem
and
with the
it's-
road.
You said that it was 5 miles out of 500 for the county to maintain.
Correct.
This would be, in our city, 3 miles, and we only have 30. So you're talking about 10%, not 1% for us, and so it is a significant burden.
And I guess maybe if I can kind of look at your drainage issue, the way I would approach it is I would look at it and say, okay, where's the water coming from? And one of them that I'm aware of is it's coming from a Cedar Hills road. So I would come back to the city and say, city, take care of your drainage coming off of your road onto the county road. And, you know, and
Now we start. I had to squeak the mic on that.
It's a sign.
Wow.
Geez, Dave.
No. There are existing subdivisions that were county subdivisions prior to any city incorporating them. Our worst road, the worst drainage issue is where there was a county
And I know which one
subdivision.
you're talking, so.
And so, yeah, now that area is in Cedar Hills, but
North of Cedar Hills.
for the
Yes,
last
yes, south.
15, 20
Yes,
years,
yes. Yep.
any development on Canyon Road, we've required not only the development to take care of their drainage on site, which is our standard, but also take the county's, or the state at the time, the drainage from the state road
Correct.
into their system, into their drainage system. So we have actually helped mitigate the problem, not exacerbate it.
I know you have. The point I'm trying to. Don't let him.
We trade.
You've talked enough.
We don't put our microphones, we
I
put
guess
them into roads.
the point I'm trying to make is that we would look at
So,
try to figure out what the
keep it
problem
down.
is and try to rectify.
Keep it down,
remedy
Larry,
it.
okay.
So,
So if I could just say something, and I don't know what you spoke
Look at
about
all partners.
before I came here, but with the third quarter cent that's going to be funding this, there are modifications a couple years ago that allowed for maintenance to be part of the expense out of the third quarter. The third quarter could be spent for that. Additionally, for some of these things that we're doing, it's going to require some funding transfers that'll have to go to the NPO to get reviewed. I'm not a politician, but I don't see there are a lot of issue with that. But as you're looking at that modification to make sure all the funding is in place here in the next couple months, add in these things of a quote unquote soft landing of maintenance in that request, and look at some value engineering and some advanced construction that may save some cost there. I mean, we do have risk associated with delays in this, in that we're expecting that there's going to be some major construction going on at the state level. We know that the economy is picking up here. There's a lot of construction going on. You just have to look around and see that. And that tends to lend towards costs increasing. So the more that we can do it, the quicker we can do, the more advantageous we're going to have some of that bidding, which then will give us an opportunity to have some savings there that we can maybe look at a soft landing as we put that into a whole package deal on this. And it wasn't too many years ago that, and Richard and others can attest to, that every project was coming in over budget, over bid, over, and then we had a good time for infrastructure projects when they were coming in under, and we were getting additional funding, and we could put that and reinvest that in. But I don't know how long that will stay. But I would just say maybe you can look at that when you approach the NPO to add that kind of soft landing in, if that's the big holdup. Now, if it's an issue of something greater, a philosophical issue of a standard of a road, then that's something else. But if it's a soft landing of maintenance costs. I think that's something that,
Let me see if I can kind of help us just summarize, and we can move past all of this now. What I'm hearing from the council from Cedar Hills is, for a lot of you, either you weren't aware that there had been discussions prior to election or during your term, and maybe the details of what that entailed weren't really made clear. So, some of those discussions weren't part of it. So, and when you finally did hear about it, it kind of feels like what I'm hearing is it was thrust upon you, kind of a take it now or leave it, a little bit in your face, kind of a slap in the face thing where you've walked into something and, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. I haven't heard of this. Why am I being asked to do this? And why are my feet being suddenly held to the fire? If I were in that situation, and I'm not, but if I were in that situation, I think I'd react the same way. The difference for me is that I was here before, took a break, I come back, and here we are 12 years later talking about the same subject. And what I've hopefully learned at this point, and maybe I haven't learned it, is that some things take time to work themselves out and get to where we are. And I think I've heard you ask for that time. You've asked for time to be able to look at this and say, can we work some of these things out, or can I at least get comfortable with what's being proposed in front of me? And is that far from what you're saying?
We've been talking about this ever since I started city council, and we've had different offers thrown at us, and everyone was, saying that we'd take the road over from the county, and every time we thought, it's a county road, why would we take it? And it was because they didn't want to spend the money. Well, why should we spend the money?
Sure.
So time, I'm not sure, helps me, because we've been talking about it every few months for 3 years, and I haven't seen, the offers have been getting a little bit better, but still, why does it make sense for us to own the road 30 years from now if it doesn't make sense for us to own the road next year?
Right.
Is pushing it up to 30 years from now, city council, something that we want to do just because we don't want to take it now? If it's a city road, we should take it now. Why 30 years? If it's not a city road, it's a county road. The county road should take care of it.
Okay.
I think it's a county road. But more time doesn't help me.
Slightly different perspective. I've been around 10 years, not quite 12 years. I've never, ever heard this issue. I've been quite politically active in the city. And so this is definitely new to me, that we would be asked to somehow change our budget. I haven't had the time to figure out what kind of plan we want to put in place. Commissioner Ellertson said maybe we should just charge $2 a person. That actually would come to maybe $8.50 a house. Now we're talking, okay, maybe we should do like Provo has done and start a utility fee where we can charge people to pay for our road upkeep. And that would only cover maintenance. We actually need to start saving up money for major projects down the line. And so maybe we have to start charging $20 a household. I have to weigh that against other concerns that our residents have. If I poll residents, it's not a number one priority that I want to pay $20 extra a year so we can own Canyon Road. They might say, I'd rather pay $20 a year so I can build a pool finally in Cedar Hills. And we've talked about that actually for 10 years. We've talked about building a pool in Cedar Hills, and that is a high priority for a large number of our residents. And so it's really hard for a city council to choose to take on extra obligations, which would require raising taxes, would require having a utility fee, when it's not a major priority for our residents to do that. They're certainly concerned about the state of Canyon Road, but it's more of an anger at the state for many years for not taking care of a road that they owned, and now a frustration with the county for not taking care of a road that they own. And they feel like, why should we have to foot the bill for that, being a relatively small town with, some of the traffic is ours, but some of it is from other towns coming through, and the canyon's a busy place these days. So that's kind of where some of our frustration comes from, where you're hearing pushback from us. From a long-term perspective, and I've expressed this to the mayor, and that's why he mentioned at the start of our meeting, I can see a way where the city works in a partnership with the county. And so if the county was coming to us and saying, look, you have extra things you want on the road, perhaps that's curb and gutter, perhaps that's roundabouts or signals in some places where we have none right now, maybe we could work out a deal where the city chips in some of the extra costs that would be needed for that over and above what the county would normally spend on what they call a county grade road. I could see that as a possible way forward for our city. I could see us needing some time to talk that over. I would love for the county to come initially to us and saying, we'd like to have a partnership, as opposed to saying, here's the deal. If you don't do it, we lose the $9.3 million and we're not going to really do much to the road. I would love to have the county come and say, here's a partnership, here's a vision for where the road can be. This is what we were willing to do. What extra would you be willing to do? What does that cost look like? How much is the city willing to foot of that cost? I'd love to have that kind of discussion. I'm just not quite there yet.
Sure.
I'm surprised by that because I've only been in this as a county commissioner for 2 years, and part of the process that you're describing, I thought we were doing that with your staff, and trying to find a partnership that worked all the way through, and so that actually surprises me that we haven't had more discussion or that you feel that way, because I thought that's where we were at, what we were trying to accomplish.
At that point, we were told, that was the only discussion that was had.
Well, the meetings that I'm referring to are the meetings, in which we've come down to the commission, the mayors, and we've gone back and forth and talked about what can be done and what should be done, and yeah, it starts off like, well, we've got a county road, and this is kind of the standard that we have for the county road. Now, what would you like to see different? And we talked about the money. We talked about. I thought we were in a partnership all the way through. We don't go out to sit in front of the councils per se to do that. I don't know if that's necessarily our responsibility to do that. But we had been in full contact with the cities, all along the process. So that's kind of that's new to me. I don't know where that goes, but it's for us. I felt like we were going through and saying, hey, what works, what doesn't work? This is the money we have, and trying to make it work.
What's happened with us is we are presented an option. Mayor Gigi comes and says, the county has talked with us about an option. What do you guys think about that? And it's been, I think, every time 5-0. We're not interested in that. Just tell them to fix the road. And then 4 or 5 months later, another proposal that's a little different. No, we're not interested in that. Tell them to fix the road. And we're the ones that make the decision. So working out the details on something that hasn't been agreed to by the 5 city council members just doesn't seem to make sense. It seems like a waste of time. And we haven't ever shown any interest that I've seen. It's always been 5-0. No, we're not interested. Am I wrong?
So I guess to that question, I would say, so where's this idea of working together on a partnership? You've rejected anything we brought to you.
Right? And every time it's been us owning the road, that really
I know that you're both probably referring to when I came and made the comment. I did say that the county's interest is in maintaining it as a county road. We're not interested in maintaining it as a city road. Now, if your comments are relative to what I said, I do not remember some of the things you iterated that I said. I'm not going to argue that.
Right.
I'm just saying I don't think I would have said it that way. I think it may have been your interpretation of what
it's on
was said.
record, so I can check.
Please do. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. But I think the point is that this attempt and this agreement, as I stated a little bit ago before you came, our intent here today isn't to be an adversary. We're here to try and work through on a partnership. And I think we've come a long way from where I was when I said, if you don't take it, then we're not going to do it. The agreement before us now is not that. It's basically saying, let's work together. And you've indicated that if it's a priority to the city, that you'll find a way to help do what needs to be done. So I guess I'm saying, let's work together. Let's find a way to make it work.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I apologize. I had a commitment before this meeting was scheduled. But I appreciate you and the commissioners, Cedar Hills, and the commissioners and our staff for taking the time to meet.
Thanks for coming.
And
appreciate it.
we'll
Sid.
probably have another discussion
Thank
in the
you.
future. So thank you.
I'm actually going to have to be excused too. I got a strawberry water meeting where they're talking about all my water rights that's about to start in Payson in 10 minutes. So
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate your help, and I
Commissioner
look forward to working towards a solution, because I know my hope is that we can improve the quality of the road for all of our citizens to make it safer and make it better. I think this was a great forum to get that a little bit closer, hopefully, and hopefully some of the things I said this evening to you, you can ponder on and recognize that, hey, maybe this is a little better offer, even, than you've originally considered. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate that.
We'll alert the highway patrol.
Just don't tell the deputies, right?
I'm really glad that you all came tonight, even the one that came from Hawaii, right, today? You got that tan, that little glow. Your mayor has represented you well in all the meetings that I've been in. He's just represented your position quite clearly. Maybe not as direct as has been spoken tonight, but he has made it clear what your position is. And the reason I think this is going forward is our city is definitely interested in pursuing this. And we're at different places, right? Cedar Hills and Pleasant Grove are in different places. And we have a little more history on what happened and how we got to where we are. We were part of the North County Boulevard construction, acquiring right-of-way, got into problems with certain individuals. We had to work together to let the county take over those negotiations. There were lane changes involved, and then all of the mayors and city councils got involved as we plowed this thing up the center of the valley. And it was always the intent that was going to become the major access for the county. Whether that completely changes Canyon Road's purpose as going from state to county to city, that can be debated for a long time. The state's not going to debate it. It's gone. They passed it off. So the question for us has been, with what we know about how long it took for us to get to where we are, and with the option that we see on the table for what we need to do and where we can be, for us, this looks like a pretty good deal. This is a really big step, and this is really far different than what we were originally talking about. It was just a swap in the beginning. So we've come a long way. Extra monies, more than twice the money, extra maintenance, 30 extra years to sort things out and work together. We've just had a different starting point and a different experience than your city has had, and we appreciate that. And we're not here to push you in any one direction. We'll have our own discussion and decide for ourselves whether we should proceed forward. We do actually have separate agreements. One is the one where we all get together and we sign up with the county, and that has certain things in place. And the other one is where we go with the county independent of Cedar Hills, and then you kind of work on it from your point going forward.
Maybe I could ask you then, from the perspective of the portion of Canyon Road north of the canal, is there any openness from Pleasant Grove in terms of sharing maintenance on that portion of the road?
Absolutely.
Since there are a lot of
We'd love to
homes
work
there.
with you. We have a sample agreement that you can look at that we've had with Linden for 20 years, maybe 15, 20 years, where we share our southern boundary, and we finally came to the conclusion it's better for one of us to own it and one of us to maintain it, even though there are citizens from both cities all the way along the road. They zigzag all the way along that road. Yeah, we're happy to work with you. Dave,
We've already talked about
Scott.
it administratively, that
Yeah.
we know we have to, it's just not a simple, here's where the line is.
No,
So
especially in our case, we don't have the benefit. I was there when the decision was made, and I was at a party, and in my front yard, two neighbors started fighting over which city they were going to be in. That's where I was. So I remember this very clearly. That should never have happened. Should have been a lot cleaner. Nonetheless, we are where we are, and we're doing the best we can to move forward. So
I would like to interject one little asterisk right here. You know that our northern border is Skiwampus. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm very, very good friends with the boy that plows our side of that zigzag. Do you know that your boys lift their blade when they cross into Pleasant Grove? Even if it's for a very short space. Did you know that?
I was not aware, no.
So we've told our boys to just plow. We will too. Thank you.
And we're not saying this to be rude. That's not
But
the intent of inviting you here
we have a
tonight.
culture problem.
We weren't aware of that. There's a long-standing culture.
And I know.
Right.
One of many issues.
But, and I would shout for joy, because I think that would just, I think the culture of the past is okay to die. And I think that there's a new one.
I think most of us are new to the city council from when there was problems, because I don't have any bad feelings towards Pleasant Grove at all.
That's
at
good.
all.
Wonderful,
and
thank
same.
you.
And I'm the same. So, and I'm new. So
You can call us if you find out, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, let's
yeah.
fix that. 'Cause
I
think
just
we're
wanted to know
really good.
that, so I think that is just a long-standing irritant. And I think it's a reflection of a mood. And so, and I think it's time for that mood to,
Hard feelings related to the
yes. Anyway.
I'm fine if we can fix that and just keep it for when Lone Peak plays Pleasant Grove in football.
That will not happen.
Mayor, I just want to say I appreciate you allowing us to come talk tonight. And that's what I wanted, was to hear your perspective. It sounds like you've been involved a lot longer than most of us at this table, and that helps. And from the county, I would hope, and again, I'm speaking out of turn here, so you guys can interrupt me if you think I shouldn't say this, but I would hope that maybe coming here tonight too helped you to see that even between Pleasant Grove and Cedar Hills, there's a vast difference when it comes to resources and capability of handling a road of this magnitude. And so maybe that's where we're at, is that we have to have a separate agreement with Pleasant Grove and Cedar Hills, because what Pleasant Grove can handle is not the same as what Cedar Hills can handle, but the agreement assumes that we can. And that's part of our heartburn, is that we feel, at least I feel anyway, and I know a lot of our residents have felt that, you know, we're a much smaller city with a much smaller budget and fewer resources, but being asked to take on something that a larger city can handle. And that's a very big challenge to ask a city of our size to do. And so maybe it is separate agreements between the county and the cities. I don't know.
And if I could add a comment, I haven't spoken yet, but the mayor represented where Pleasant Grove was at. That doesn't necessarily mean that Pleasant Grove is unanimous in that opinion. There's been a lot of good argument on both sides, a lot of things to consider and think about. But Cedar Hills is right, that the ongoing maintenance costs in perpetuity of a road far, far, far eclipse the MAG money that's being talked about. And so it is very literally a depreciating asset, the road that nobody wants. Nobody wants this road. It's going to cost a lot for whoever owns it. And so it is not in our financial best interest to take it, in my view. I have the perspective that, you know, the cards are in the hands of the commission. You guys could spend that full 9.3 right away. You could have spent it 2 years ago. And so the hope would be that as Cedar Hills debates what they want to do, as Pleasant Grove debates what we want to do, the hope would be that you would be thinking about the people driving those roads, driving Canyon Road, and thinking about, are you okay living with the potential of not doing both the fixes and the improvements, regardless of what the cities do?
This week, I wanted to turn all of our roads over to the state. And I wish every city and every county would do the same and just say, fix them. You created the gas tax system to fix this, fix them, and make sure everybody gets equal treatment. But unfortunately, that's not where we live.
You might get $3 million to fix it.
Commissioner.
You allude to something, and I would just like to say something. I was the mayor of Linden 20 years ago, and we worked very closely with Pleasant Grove. My demeanor is generally to try and find partnerships. If I've miscommunicated, it may have been an impatient night. I don't know what it was. I wish you would have let me know that sooner. Don't let that stop you from doing something with the county. I apologize if I've offended somebody. The intent there was to try and communicate where we were at that point in time. We have come a long way from there. And I still have a genuine interest, I think the county does, all of us. And when I was speaking at that point in time, I wasn't speaking unilaterally. This had been something that we had talked about. And the genuine feeling was is that we need to try and find a solution to try and get the cities to accept those roads. What Ben says is right. It's going to cost money, regardless of who owns the road. But the point is, at some point in time, you and I, each one of us, need to step up and say, I'm willing to pay my share. I can't expect somebody else to pay it for me. I've got to be willing to step up and say, that's my responsibility. Whatever that is. And we can't hide from that. And so,
And that's true of all of us, right?
That's what I'm
Statewide.
saying. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. We all need to be willing to come together and try and work together and get the best solution we can with the understanding that we all need to work together to find the best solution we can. Thank you.
Mayor, did you have anything you wanted to?
No, I think this was a productive meeting.
Okay.
And our council has some things to talk about.
Okay, great. Cedar Hills Council, if you want to talk some more about the background or history, feel free to contact any of us. Some of us have been involved a little longer than others, but we're happy to share whatever we can that will help you with whatever you're going to decide. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That was going to be second. I know. Almost made the motion.